Good evening. We will now call the business session of September 15th, 2020 to order at 6 p.m. On March 16th, 2020, the governor suspended various provisions of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to his state of disaster authority. The change was effective March 16th, 2020 until further notice or until the state of disaster declaration expires. In accordance with physical distancing guidelines and while providing as much transparency as possible, this meeting will not be open to the public. This meeting is being broadcast live at wccc.tv. The audio is also being recorded. The video and audio recordings will be available to the public. According to the governor and attorney general, statutes that may require face-to-face interaction between members of the public and public officials are suspended, provided, however, that the governmental body offers alternative methods of communication with their public officials. This includes public comment on agenda items. In an effort to allow for as much public input as possible, those who wish to submit their written comments on a listed agenda item were asked to submit their comments to the city secretary's office by 11 a.m. today. The city secretary will read into the record the comments submitted for items on the agenda at the appropriate times. Individuals who registered to speak on a public hearing item will be allowed to speak remotely for 3 minutes. Esmeralda, I believe we did receive some registrations for the public hearings. Is that correct?
We did, yes, sir. They said they'd be available for questions, but we can make sure that they have an opportunity to speak if they'd like.
Okay. When the registered speaker is acknowledged, he or she must limit his or her comments to 3 minutes. For any person addressing the council through the use of a translator, the speaking time will be doubled to accommodate the translation services. Now, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item of business is to consider and approve the minutes of the September 1st and September 8th, 2020 meetings. Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved as read. We have 9 public hearings tonight. The first is public hearing 2020-615.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the following subdivision plats. Final plat and construction plans of Park Meadow South Edition Phase 2 and final plats of South Fork Edition Phases 7, 8, 12 through 19, and 21 through 23. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended that subdivision plats and construction plans be approved.
Are there any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Ewing?
Yes.
Kennard?
Yes.
Sabito?
Yes.
Fairfield?
Yes.
Beaver?
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-616.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. This is a public hearing on an ordinance amending the project and finance plan for reinvestment zone number 1 for tax increment financing. To consider approving an extension of the contract with the City Center Waco to provide an extension for the design and engineering contract associated with the East Waco Plaza and Bridge Street enhancements, also commonly known as the Front Porch Project, located at 100 to 300 Bridge Street, extending the completion date from May 31st, 2020 to November 27th, 2020, and authorizing the city manager to execute any documents necessary to complete these transactions, providing an effective date, providing a saving clause, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining that the meeting at which the ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance comes to you on first reading.
Thank you, Ken.
Pardon me, I've been dealing with allergies and it's tough in the mask.
It's not easy to do in the mask. I appreciate that, Ken. Any questions for staff?
Well, I need to complete this.
Oh,
On August 13th, 2020, the investment TIF zone, I'm good. Zone for Tax Increment Financing Board of Directors, aka the TIF Board, voted 7-0 to recommend an extension of the contract with City Center Waco to provide an extension for the design and engineering contract associated with the East Waco Plaza and Bridge Street enhancements, also commonly known as the Front Porch Project, located at 100 to 300 Bridge Street, extending the completion date from May 31st, 2020 to November 27, 2020. As required by law, a notice of this public hearing was published in the Waco Tribune Herald on September 4, 2020.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir, they did not.
All right. We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Green,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Eva,
Yes. Public hearing 2020-617.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. This is a public hearing to receive comments on the 2020-2021 Annual Action Plan prior to submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The City of Waco Citizen Participation Plan requires that the city conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the 2021 Annual Action Plan prior to submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Annual Action Plan includes a housing, homeless, economic development, and community development needs plan for addressing priority needs and the city's specific plans for the use and spending of the 2020-21 Community Development Block Grant Funds and Home Investment Partnership Program Funds. The plan was made available for the public's review on September 10, 2020, and will remain available through October 9, 2020. Hard copies are available for the public's viewing in the City Secretary's office, the Housing Office, and the public libraries. The notice for this public hearing was published in the non-legal section of the Waco Tribune Herald newspaper and posted on the city's website, posted at the city libraries, and on the city's public bulletin boards.
All right. Thank you. We will open a public hearing. Esmeralda, did anyone register for this item?
no, sir, not for this item.
Okay. We will close the public hearing and no action is required on the item at this time. So we will go to public hearing 2020-618. Thank you, Renisha.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Golden Texas LLC for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district and property described as lot 20, block 60, the Dean Edition, known as 2701 Herring Avenue. By a vote of 7-1, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, that proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, that the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area which is located. 3, that the proposed use will not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of special exception. And that available community facilities and services, including the road system, providing access to proposed use are adequate for the proposed use.
Okay. Thank you, Clint. Any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, did anyone register to speak on this item?
Yes, sir, we had a Chris Weinbolt was one of the first to register to speak on this item, and he said he'd be available for questions, and he should be on the line.
Mr. Weibelt, are you on the line?
I'm on the line, thank you.
Did you have any comments or just ready to take questions?
Just any questions you guys have. I'm working with my sister-in-law, Sonia, who I think is also on the line. We're just here for you if you have anything to say.
Okay, we'll take any questions for Chris first. Anyone?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weibelt. The next speaker is Sonia Medrano. Sonia, are you on the line?
Yes, sir.
And did you have any comments or were you just available to answer questions?
Yes, sir, just available if anybody has questions.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Medrano? All right, thank you both very much.
I don't have a question. I just want to make sure that they are speaking on behalf of Public Hearing 618. I was under the impression they were speaking for the Bagby one. I apologize. Both. Okay, sorry about that. My apologies.
No worries. All right, Esmeralda, there were no other speakers registered?
No, sir, no other speakers.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing on this item. Is there a motion?
I'll move for
Motion
approval.
for second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Green,
Yes.
Bernard,
Yes.
Edom,
Yes.
Barfield,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-619.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Enrique and Laura Nadra for short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as a 3.98 acres, more or less out of the Thomas de la Vega grant in McLennan County, Texas, being all of a certain 4-acre tract conveyed to Nina J. Russell by deed dated November 10th, 1989, and recorded in volume 1678, page 251 of McLennan County, Texas deed records, known as 3601 Orchard Lane. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed use is consistent with a comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate orderly development of the area which is located. 3, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of special exception. And 4, that the available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use.
All right, any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, anyone on this one?
no, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Lee,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Edom,
Yes.
Barfield,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-620.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 1A, 2A, B1, B2, 15A, 16A, 15B, 16B, 15C, and 16C, Block 7 of the Baylor Edition, known as 1803, 1805, 1809, 1817, 1821, and 1825 Bagby Avenue shall be changed from R2 district classification and become and be designated into 03 district classification, providing for penalties, providing severability clause, and finding and determined that the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, the Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in 03 zoning district. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for 03 zoning. 4, there's 03 zoning near the subject properties. And 5, the 03 zoning provides a buffer from commercial zoning to the west along Interstate 35 and residential zoning to the east.
All right, any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, we have Mr. Wiebolt and Ms. Medrano registered for this one as well.
yes, sir, and they are on the line.
Okay, and Mr. Wiebolt, any comments on this one?
No, sir. Thank you. Just here if anybody has any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Wiebolt? All right, thank you, Mr. Wiebolt. Ms. Medrano, did you have any comments?
No, sir, I'm here as well. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Ms. Medrano?
No questions, but I just wanted to say, Ms. Medrano, I know you've been waiting on this process for a long time, and so I appreciate your patience, and so thank you so much for reaching out to me very early, and I'm glad that it's on the agenda finally. So you can move forward with your plan. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, and that, as Esmeralda, that's all those registered speakers, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Edom,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-621.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 4 and 5, Block 1 of the Brookview Hills Edition, known as 1324 North 34th Street, shall be changed from R1B district classification and become and be designated into R2 district classification, providing for penalties, providing severability clause, and finding determined at the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended disapproval of the request based on the following findings. One, the proposed R2 zoning could be considered incompatible with the existing single-family neighborhood that surrounds it. And two, there is already an adequate amount of residential zoning in the area that allows higher density development to support appropriate growth in the area. Pursuant to state law and the zoning ordinance, a 3/4 vote of all members of City Council is required to approve an application that either fails to receive a favorable report and recommendation from the Plan Commission or for which a protest is filed with the Commission or Council. In this case, the application failed to receive a favorable report or recommendation from the Plan Commission, therefore a 3/4 vote is required for approval.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, we don't have any registered speakers for this one, do we?
That's correct. No registered speakers.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we disapprove this request.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Heber,
Yes. That motion carries. Public hearing 2020-622.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 of Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that zoning map shall be changed so a certain property describes lots 1 and 2, Block A of the Man subdivision known as 500 South 11th Street shall be changed from M2 district classification to become and be designated in the O2 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finally determined that meeting at which this ordinance passes open to the public is required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. One, proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. Two, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O2. Three, the property meets all area and width requirements for O2. And four, there's O2 zoning near the subject properties.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, we don't have any registered speakers for this one, do we?
we do not.
We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Heber,
Yes. Last public hearing is 2020-623.
Honorable Mayor,
Madam-
members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance abandoning the following easements located near the intersection of FM 434 and Gurley Lane. One, a 20-foot wide utility easement described as 0.230 acre tract of land situated in the TJ Chambers Grant abstract number 7, McLennan County, Texas, and being all called 0.230 acre tract of land described in a perpetual easement in the deed to City of Waco is recorded in MCC number 2017-0405-023 with official public records in McLennan County, Texas. Two, a 20-foot wide utility easement described as a 0.052 acre tract of land situated in the TJ Chambers Grant abstract number 7, McLennan County, Texas, and being a portion of a called 0.513 acre tract of land described as a perpetual easement in a deed to the City of Waco is recorded in MCC number 2017-013-061 in the official public records in McLennan County, Texas. And three, a 20-foot wide utility easement described as a 0.018 acre tract of land situated in the TJ Chambers Grant abstract number 9, McLennan County, Texas, and being a portion of the remainder of that called 52.96 acre tract of land, tract 2, described in a deed to the City of Waco Municipality Corporation as a deed to the City of Waco, recorded in volume 227, page 57 in official public records in McLennan County, Texas. Finding no duty to maintain, authorizing the city manager to execute claim deeds, providing a severability clause, and determining finding that the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of abandonment based on the following finding: that the abandoning the easements is necessary in order to record new easements needed in accordance with revised construction plans for the project.
Thank you, Clint. Any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing for comments. Esmeralda, do we have any speakers registered on this one?
We do not, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading. Second.
All All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes, that motion carries. We'll turn to our resolutions now. We have received a comment card for agenda item resolution 2020-648, which we will now remove from the consent agenda and vote on separately. Melda, will you read the comments for agenda item 2020-648?
Yes, sir. We received a comment from Alan Northcutt. His comment states, this resolution describes a lease agreement option with Enterprise Rent a Car Company for $108,000 for 10 cars over 12 months. These are described as police cars used for special investigations and are rotated. Thus, it is not clear if the cars are leased sequentially, how many are leased at one time, or the make of the cars. We know that transportation is a key sector which must transition away from fossil fuels by 2050 at the latest. The leasing would provide an excellent opportunity to evaluate electric cars, EVs, and no long-term commitment. Now Enterprise does list the Tesla Model SEV as one of the lease vehicles. I do not see the prices listed as this time. However, this car would likely satisfy the needs for special investigation. It is spacious with outstanding performance, luxury and 240-mile range. This option should definitely be considered now. The Enterprise agreement appears to be an optional extension. Thus, I assume other arrangements may be considered. Electric online lists EV leases in the U.S. with excellent prices. The Kia Niro, a crossover with 239-mile range, leases from $357 to $451 monthly. The Chevy Bolt with excellent performance and 259-mile range leases from $141 to $390 monthly. So there are electric options for these special investigation vehicles. Yes, that would require a change in routine and adjustments by personnel. But obviously, we cannot just continue to do the same thing and expect a different outcome. Rather than approve the resolution, time should be taken to consider the EV options in light of the Council's responsibility to the future of our world. And why does this matter? Well, just in 2020, the climate crisis has brought a scorching heat wave, drought in the Southwest, a record Atlantic hurricane season, and the West devastated by record wildfire. All this just 1 degree C warming. If we and the world do not act, we are looking at 3 degree C temperatures increased this century with catastrophic impacts. We need to follow the science as we did with the pandemic and take action on our greenhouse gas footprint today. See Lee's State EVs as file attachments. Thank you. Mayor and Council, those file attachments were forwarded to you earlier today when we received the comment.
Okay, thank you, Esmeralda. Is there a motion on this item?
I will move approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes, that motion carries. The consent agenda tonight consists of resolutions 2020-624 through 2020-683, with the exception of resolution 2020-648. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Vito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Seaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We have 3 ordinances tonight. The first is on first reading, ordinance 2020-684.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Waco, Texas, approving a negotiated settlement between the Atmos City Steering Committee, ACSC, and Atmos Energy Corp, Mid-Tex Division, regarding the company's 2020 rate review mechanism filing, declaring existing rates to be unreasonable, adopting tariffs that reflect rate adjustments consistent with the negotiated settlement, finding the rates to be set by the attached settlement tariffs to be just and reasonable and in the public interest, approving an attached exhibit establishing a benchmark for pensions and retiree medical benefits, approving an attached exhibit regarding amortization of regulatory liability, requiring the company to reimburse ACSC's reasonable rate-making expenses, determining this ordinance was passed in accordance with the requirements of the Texas Open Meetings Act, adopting a savings clause, declaring an effective date, and requiring delivery of this ordinance to the company and to ACSC's legal counsel. This ordinance comes to council on first reading.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm afraid I didn't get a second.
I'll take it.
Thank you, sorry.
Thanks.
No worries.
Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Sabito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-685.
An ordinance approving and adopting a service plan and assessment plan for Waco Public Improvement District Number 1, including the annual budget and assessment rule for providing improvements and/or services for fiscal year 2020-21, making provisions for the levying of assessments against property in the district and the owners thereof, fixing charges and liens against property in the district and the owners thereof, providing for collection of such assessments, enacting other provisions related thereto, reserving unto the City Council the authority to reduce such assessments based on credits established by City Council, directing that all required procedures be followed in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Local Government Code, providing for a savings clause, providing for an effective date, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 4-0 council vote on first reading on September 1st, 2020.
And Councilmember Kennard and I have filed affidavits of substantial interest on this item, so we won't be discussing or voting on this item. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Sabito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
That motion carries. Ordinance 2020-686.
An ordinance approving and adopting an updated service plan and assessment plan for Waco Public Improvement District Number 2, including the annual budget, assessment plan, and assessment roll for fiscal year 2020-21, making provisions for the levying of special assessments for improvement costs and annual administrative expense assessments on certain property in Public Improvement District Number 2 and the owners thereof, fixing charges and liens against the property in Public Improvement District Number 2 and the owners thereof, providing for collection of such assessments, enacting other provisions relating thereto, reserving unto the council the authority to reduce such assessments based on credits established by the City Council, directing that all required procedures be followed in accordance with Chapter 372 of the Local Government Code, providing a savings clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on September 1st, 2020.
You have a motion.
I'll move approval on second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Ewing,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Sabito,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes, that motion carries. Are there any council member reports on committees or boards or commissions liaison visits?
No, sir, I have no report, but I just want to make sure everyone knows that the sample ballot is now available on the county's elections website. So it'll give people an opportunity, an ample opportunity, to look online and note that the municipal elections and school board elections are at the top of their ballot, and prepare to make their decisions as early voting begins October 13th.
All right. There being no... I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if I may add also, Mayor, before you close,
Sure.
I'd just like to remind everyone that today is the first day of Hispanic Heritage Month, and all of the great gifts and the thoughts that Hispanics have given to our country and to the world. And so the Hispanic Chamber is doing a great job in highlighting some of our local Hispanic leaders and movers and shakers. And so I would encourage everyone to go to their website and nominate someone. And so just thank you for that.
All right. Thank you. There being no further business, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:29 p.m. Thank you. Have a good evening.